Our 2022 breakfast series continues with a discussion about the upcoming municipal elections. While we usually conscript members of our industry, this morning we are very happy to welcome two local award-winning journalists, Francis Bula and Dan Fumano, who will share their wealth of knowledge and insight to help us all understand what may transpire after and or before Election Day next month. Our moderator this morning is well known to the Vancouver real estate community and beyond. To formally welcome and introduce our panelists is our moderator today. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Mr. Gary Pooni of the Pooni Group. Thank you.
Where do I put my coffee? I heard someone say, wow, looking at my jacket. Is that what it was? I have matching pants, for real. I didn't bring them. You can hear me okay? That's good, okay. You guys can hear me in the back? Those were the cheaper tables, discounted tables in the back. Okay, thanks, Paul. And I'm going to start off by saying that there's nothing more exciting at 7 o'clock in the morning than city politics, right? Just can't contain your excitement. And just no one could sleep last night. It is an important conversation, so I appreciate the effort that people make to come to an early morning meeting like this. So I'm going to introduce our panel. So first of all, Francis Bula. She's one of our most famous local journalists. She's been writing on urban issues and metropolitics for a number of years. She's got 35 years worth of experience writing for many publications. I think you started out with the Vancouver Sun, but she writes now with the Globe, BC Business, Vancouver Magazine, award-winning, a journalism instructor also at Langara College, and then herself, she has a master's degree in communications from SFU. So please welcome up to the stage, Francis Bula. Also joining us is Dan Fumano. Dan is also an urban issues, civic politics journalist. He focuses mostly on the city of Vancouver, mostly. Largely his role has been with the Vancouver Sun and the province for the last 10 years. Prior to that, I didn't know this till last night, he was a writer for the NBC Olympics, right, from 2010 to 2016. Olympics got super boring, started writing on City of Vancouver politics, and which is much better. So it's nice to have you here. Also, Dan, please welcome to the stage Dan Fumano. That's comfy. Is that good? Are you? It's probably because of feedback or something.
Okay.
Hi. You're on? You're okay.
Great.
Hey. All right.
Comfy.
50 years of experience with the two of you. And you're both celebrities, I would say. Both celebrities in the work that we do.
Yes, we walk down the street and people ask for our signatures. The paparazzi are all around.
I did.
It's
There's
so
a selfie
hard to
booth
get anything
outside
done.
later. I would take a selfie with you. I'm going to do that later. The three of us will get one. I'll post it on my I'm a social media influencer, so your pictures, yeah, clearly your pictures are going to go a long way. But both of you are incredibly well known, so it is a privilege for the two of you to sort of remove this media cloak that you have, and with the sort of writing that you do, to have the two of you not be behind the scenes but be on stage. So it's a privilege for us here. So actually, before I get started, we had invited all of the candidates to come. Is there anybody who's running for anything that's in the room? Nobody that wants to admit it?
They're very busy.
Yeah, no kidding. How about this guy in blue? What's your name? Sorry, what's your name? Taryn. Oh, okay. Are you running? You're not running for mayor anywhere? No? No? Okay, no, that's fine. This guy is so polite. Too polite for politics. Okay, so I had a note here to thank all the current candidates that are running, so we can skip past that because there's nobody here. There's going to be some audience participation before we get started. There is a QR code that you all have at your table, and that'll take you to this portal called Mentimeter. Okay, so first of all, the big caveat is that this poll and the first two questions there does not mean that NAIOP is endorsing anyone or making a prediction. This is your own personal opinion as to who you think would win if there was an election held today. So there's two questions there. If you could please fill in those. The second bit is if you have questions for the panelists, you can input them there. I believe that's the third part of that. And then those questions are going to come to me on my iPad, and then I'll sift through them partway through the morning and then pull them up. Okay? So just go through the first two questions. I believe the first one is, if there's an election held today, who would win the mayor's seat? And if there's an election held today, who would take up the majority of council? All right, so for our panelists, where do we want to start? Find any piece of paper lately? Actually, anybody here for the mayor's?
We're waiting for Stanley. He's checking all the garbage bins for us.
I know. There he is right there, actually, outside, picking through
the rest of us to shame. I mean, we think we're doing a good job of digging and file the odd Freedom of Information request. He's getting scoops in dumpsters and on sidewalks and literally.
Who knew?
Like, that's digging.
That's better than a lottery
kudos.
ticket.
No, it's
right?
Absolutely.
I don't know about Dan, but I sadly haven't been through a garbage bin in quite a long time.
It's been days, yeah.
Anybody here for the mayor's donor list that wants to raise their hand? Anybody? Anybody here? They're all busy fundraising.
Weren't you on it? No?
I wasn't on it. No. You weren't reviewing it. I was on the third page that was blank. The who's coming. Okay. So while we're on that topic, what's going on in Vancouver? So a bit of an icebreaker question. I'd like your general commentary as to the leading parties in the city of Vancouver, what you think they stand for, some of the party alliances. So maybe just a bit of an introduction as to what you think is going on in Vancouver. Dan, why don't you start, please?
Sure. I mean, it's a bit of a weird election. I think the last election was kind of crazy in its own way. I mean, one thing obviously it's different about this Vancouver election is for a long time in Vancouver you kind of had a relatively stable two-party system for the most part, and occasionally a third party might get a couple seats around the council table, or one or two seats. But for a long time you kind of had the NPA, which is sort of the establishment kind of business supported party, and then you had COPE as kind of the left-wing party backed by activists and labor, organized labor. And it would kind of work like that for decades, for the most part. You had Team and, and then more recently, obviously, Vision was an offshoot of, which started as an offshoot of COPE and ran the city for a decade. But then the last election, obviously, you had it splinter into a whole bunch of different parties. And then after the election, I guess you had 4 different parties represented around the council table and an independent mayor. And I think, which is probably the most diverse council, at least in a generation, if not more. But then this time, because that current council has fractured even further, so I think now and then the mayor has started his own party, so I think there's 7 party affiliations. Like the incumbents, all of whom are running, have 7 different party affiliations, which I think that's probably never happened in Vancouver in
Yeah, I think that's a
years.
record. That's
Yeah,
a
not
record.
at this scale.
So you got 7 different parties all running, and then that doesn't even include Vision, which, as we say, ran the city for a full decade, and so they're running council candidates again, and then you've got another new party in Progress Vancouver with Mark Marison running for mayor, who's a experienced, established guy with not a history of being a candidate, but a history in politics. So you got to think there might be some kind of a factor. So it's it's not like a 2-horse race like we often saw for the mayor's seat, or council would be kind of a question of how many seats does the MPA get versus whoever else? Like, it's just totally kind of wide open. So it's even more so than last time.
Well, and we made an agreement to disagree. We actually agree on everything, but we're going to pretend we don't.
We secretly have these media party meetings that are secret where we decide what all the lies we're going to tell the public, and then
right,
George Soros
a
pays for
unified
it.
message. But I kind of disagree that it's as confusing as it was last time, or that it seems to some people this time. I think it's really clearly boiling down to Kennedy Stewart and a slate that he's trying to identify, and Ken Sim and his 7 candidates. Colleen Hardwick is, if all the polling is correct, is going to take a certain number of votes, both from the right and the left, of people who are very fearful of change in the city. And Mark Marison and, I'm losing my mind. Who
Fred.
else? Fred. Like the
Fred Harding with the
NPA
NPA.
is showing all the signs of being on life support. This party that I covered for years and thought, it was like the powerhouse of this town. Like, if you wanted to meet people, if you wanted to network, if you wanted to get anything done, you were in the NPA. But it is, after several rounds of people with a less broad view of who they want to recruit, taking over the board, I think there's a sense that it represents a pretty conservative group, and I don't think they're registering, and I think Mark Marison's Progress Vancouver is not really registering. So it's really, I think, for a lot of people, coming down to Kennedy Stewart and Ken Sim, and not about policy, because when you have 2 mayoral candidates who are constantly accusing each other of stealing each other's platforms, that tells you that there's not a lot of difference in actual fact between them. And that's what's going on. Night manager, I can't remember all the, Dan probably remembers better than I do. So I think it's coming down to people who sort of feel like, okay, Kennedy Stewart is not my wildest, fantasy of a mayor, and neither is Ken Sim, but, some are just going to go with, I'm going to vote left, progressive, green, whatever, and they'll try and pick out who they can from who they think is the slate that will support Kennedy Stewart, and the same thing with Ken Sim. And I think the interesting thing is going to be how the public figures out who to vote for council.
Yeah, that's what I mean when I say it's
Yeah.
wide
That's the
open.
part that's confusing that
Yeah.
Dan was
Yeah.
talking
Because
about.
people focus so much on the mayor's race, but people in this room probably understand better than most Vancouver voters. People think the mayor runs the show,
Yeah.
but he or she is 1 vote out of 11. I mean, previously.
Yeah, the main advantage the mayor has is a $2 million office budget.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and there's the more visibility and,
Minimum.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's the council vote that I think is hard
and
to.
like Ken Sim has a very clearly defined slate of 7 ABC candidates. So I think they feel like they're well positioned. Kennedy Stewart has started his own party, a bunch of rookies, including his wife and his chief of staff. But one of what they've done is they named the party Forward Together with Kennedy Stewart. So that's going to appear beside 7 names on the ballot. So people who are trying to figure out who is the group I vote for to try to get a majority on council and stop the chaos of the last 4 years, which I know all of you are familiar with. Really, it's been like going to a casino and playing roulette. Like, where will the ball land today? Anyone's guess. Anyone's. So I think there's a number of people who would like to see a more cohesive council with one group or another group, any one group in charge. So at least you have a sense of where you're going. I mean, that's us, right? We're the rational people who want the world to be orderly. I know that not everyone votes that way.
So since we're supposed to be disagreeing, I
disagree. I think we came here all to agree.
you just like to disagree just to cause shit. I do agree with Dan that it is confusing because you started listing off the 7 parties. Can you you were getting confused, Dan, just trying to remember all 7 parties. I can't remember their names either.
But you don't have to, because it's coming down to Kennedy Stewart and Ken Sim and whoever you think is needed to back them up.
But say, even if you do support Kennedy Stewart, like, there's these other parties that are all kind of somewhat aligned and somewhat share the same labor
people on the
endorsement.
left are like, what mix of one city, Coke, Green,
It's political bingo, right?
So that
It's
could
just
really
like you
work
just
against
pick-
them, I would
Yes,
think, right?
yeah.
So last time around, I mean, I don't know if we want to get into like plausible scenarios or things like that.
Yeah,
at
we
this
can.
stage.
Yeah, we can jump to that question.
I mean,
Yeah.
you're calling the show, but I mean, last time around, you had the Vancouver District Labor Council endorsed its slate of 10 council candidates and Kennedy Stewart for mayor, and they endorsed candidates from 3 parties, the Greens, One City, and COPE, kind of the left-wing progressive parties. And they, their slate got a narrow majority with a mayor and 5 councillors. Now, it's an open question of how much influence or impact that
Because I know all of
endorsement
you are
actually
looking
has.
at the Vancouver District and Labor Council's list to help guide you in your voting.
But even among union members, it's an open question. How much impact does that have? I don't know. It's fair question. But the point is that they were at least able to kind of broker a deal and have each party agree to limit the number of candidates they were
Yes.
running. Now, those three parties plus Stewart, last time around, I can't remember the numbers exactly, but I looked at this recently. I think last time they had 9 council candidates total, or maybe 10, I guess, and Stewart. And then this time around, there's more than 20 between those parties, largely because of Stewart starting his own party. So that
Dan, do you want to
splits
explain to everyone here that may not be familiar with VDLC and what happens with the unions with their endorsements? I think they all know what happens in the development industry, but maybe from
Well, I'm not sure
from the
exactly.
union
You would
side.
know better. But
I mean, the Vancouver District and Labor Council has been very strong in the past, especially when they were contributing.
It's an
half a
association
million.
of the major
All
unions.
the major unions. Some of which are more left-wing and some of which are slightly more centrist, so they don't always totally agree on everything. But they would, they would decide who they were going to support. It was worth like up to $500,000 sometimes in campaign donations, not to mention, freeing their members up or letting them be seconded to, go and work on campaigns. It was a very powerful force. I feel like it's less and less so with every year, and especially with their weird mixed bag of who they chose to endorse this time. I just don't see them having any impact, actually.
Yeah. Well, even the activities they're doing this time around, they're able to do. They're more restricted in what they can do because of new rules Elections BC brought in after the last election.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
may not
our
be as much
industry
effect.
gets criticized for campaign donations and trying to influence elections, but really the District Labor Council, the association of these unions, and this is coming from somebody who is one of the few people in the real estate industry who has been friendly to the NDP over the last 10 years, feels that influence is used to be quite significant, right? And so, and it did play a role in the last election. And so they give a list out and send it out to their members. If you live in New Westminster, here are the labor endorsed candidates, and you go vote for them. It'd be the same as us in our industry, the UDI or NAIOP or ULI saying, here's the candidates we endorse, and go vote for all of them. So that's what happens with the VDLC.
One thing I'm waiting for that I think would be an interesting new wrinkle in this election is if certain influencer organizations decided there's so much chaos out there, we're going to try to help people by putting out the list of, who we think they should vote for if they want certain results.
Like what kind of influencer groups?
Well,
The
I
YIMBY
mean, I know the
movement?
Board of Trade doesn't want to weigh in, but, somebody like that, because to me, the picture is very clear right now. 2 front runners, Colleen Hardwick with the please let's go back to the 1970s party, 2 more marginal groups. And so to me, it's really clear, but I understand that it isn't for everyone and that the council vote in particular is very confusing for those who are trying to figure out how do I support my mayoral candidate with a council that will give him a majority. It is Hims this time, so yeah.
So we're going to backpedal a little bit. And during our pre-call, I'd asked you, like, what did you think was going to be bigger in this election, policy or personality? And then you touched on it a little bit. So let's go back to what you think the three biggest issues are, and then dial back to what you think the front runners' personalities are, who you think they represent.
You ask such easy questions.
Okay. It might not be, this is a group of developers.
I say
sometimes,
yes.
you know.
That's my answer.
It might be
yes.
easy.
Say
It
no.
wasn't a yes or no question. I disagree.
Dan, you go ahead.
Dan,
You
so
go
what are the
ahead.
three biggest issues? You can identify, I think I know what they are, but I think we all know housing is one. What are the next two that you think impact this election? And does it really matter, is the question. Does that matter, or is it the person that's running that matters?
Kind of.
No, God, I disagree.
So I think, yeah, so housing is a major issue, probably the biggest issue, I think, still. But then public safety and crime kind of seems like it's shaping up to be an issue in a way that I don't remember. It wasn't in the last Vancouver election. I don't remember in the last few Vancouver elections, I don't remember kind of public safety and crime being such an issue. It's been a big election issue in Surrey and some other municipalities in recent elections, but it seems like, yeah, public safety and crime. And I don't think that's totally unique to Vancouver. I think other cities, Seattle, Toronto, San Francisco, are like kind of seeing increases in street disorder and crime, and it's on a lot of people's minds. So some politicians naturally want to try to use that and, you know, improve the situation. So public safety and crime is a big issue. I mean, and then obviously, and kind of connected to some extent, like drugs, addiction, overdoses it's indisputably a massive issue because we have so many people dying from overdoses in our province, way more than have died from COVID. So it's a huge issue, but it's a fair question of like, well, how much of that is a city hall issue when it's really supposed to be the responsibility of other levels of government? And then I know you only asked for two, but I mean, I guess, but transportation is kind of an issue too, which obviously links in with housing and other kinds of development.
So these are all, I would say, pre-COVID issues that got so exacerbated over the last couple of years, and then people are looking to political leaders to help us out of it. And so I agree with what Francis said, that I think the issues are the same for everyone.
Well, I haven't had a chance to talk yet. You
No,
don't
no,
know
okay.
if you agree with me. I've changed my mind since we spoke last.
You never change your mind.
No, I did. Actually,
okay.
based on something you said and a bit more feedback.
I changed your mind.
No.
Amazing.
Well, a little bit. Yeah,
Okay.
not a lot, but a little bit. So, yes, housing. That's the top. You know, the whole city just feels unaffordable. Housing is going in places, and not even just unaffordable, but like housing gets put into these places where there's no schools. So people actually find a place to live and move in, and then there's no school there. So they're driving their kids all over town, which is, you know, a climate disaster. You know, so there's a lot of things with housing and just how it makes the city work, and it's beyond affordability, but housing, yes. And then number two, yes, like not just, it's not crime, it's this sense that things have disintegrated in various areas. Like I was at dinner on Saturday night with 3 couples from different parts of the city. And there was one couple from Kerrisdale, and I said, oh, well, I don't imagine you're seeing any problems. And they were like, no, one of our neighbors had someone camping in her backyard. And someone else left out her tent to dry it out after a camping trip, and it got stolen in Kerrisdale. So I think there is this sense that, and even if that's not happening in your neighborhood, you know that there's stuff happening downtown, Gastown, Chinatown, Strathcona, a little bit Mount Pleasant. I live Mount Pleasant. I feel like no change. In fact, fewer needles in my back alley recently. So definitely that, and a sense that there's something happening with people who are struggling on the street, that because of a new wave of drugs that make them more psychotic, that they're behaving in ways we haven't totally seen before. So then, here's where I'm now agreeing with you, where I disagreed last time. I think for one group, the third issue is climate change, even though it's not being discussed very much, but
Not hearing about it.
we're not hearing anything, but I
kind of
think it
odd.
is important, and that's why they might support, that's why they would be more inclined to support the Kennedy Stewart progressive camp. Because apparently, I'm told Ken Sim actually can't bring himself to say the words climate change. So they'll see Ken Sim as not really invested in that issue, and the other side is. And I think the other side is very concerned about just a sense that the city is being well managed. You know, the budget's in order, the garbage is being picked up,
The grass on the
the
boulevards.
potholes are being filled, the grass on the boulevards is being cut. I don't know why that's such a huge issue. It's just
Huge
a
issue.
weird thing. I don't get it. I had a friend once, very NDP, but had the most beautiful garden with marigolds lined up. Like, you know, I think she used a ruler to make sure the spaces were, and people used to say, "What is with you? You garden like a Socrad." But you know, for there are a certain group of people, that visual look of the city is incredibly important. It signals to them things are working, and when they see long grass, their brains explode. So you know, I think the third issue is different on each side, and the second issue of the public, of crime, disorder, whatever, it's mixed up with so many things: mental health. Homelessness, the tents on Hastings Street, random stranger attacks, a sense that things are frayed a little bit, broken windows, you know, all the rest.
Just disorder.
It's a very big, messy topic that is about more than just crime, actually.
I stopped listening after you said you agreed with me. Yeah.
Okay, now I'm going to disagree with you. Wake up.
No. So,
We didn't get into your question about policy versus personality.
Oh
though.
yeah,
Do you
policy
want to?
versus.
yeah, so let's get into personality, policy versus personality, and then I want to talk about this interesting allegiances and alliances among the Vancouver parties, because you touched a bit on the Green Party and that vote. So there's some interesting relationships there. So let's, Dan, go to the personality question, and then Francis, go to the alliances after that.
Yeah, so I do think, as Francis touched on earlier, like the two front runners seem to be a rematch. In the Vancouver mayor's race, the two front runners seems to be a rematch of 4 years ago, Kennedy Stewart and Ken Sim. And 4 years ago when Ken was running with the NPA,
It's like Rocky 2.
It's like Rocky 2, yeah.
Very
Ain't
much
gonna be
like
no
Rocky
rematch.
too. I've never seen the Rocky movies. I have no idea what I'm
Francis.
talking about.
You threw out a Socred reference, and I looked out. There's like 8 people in the room that remember what the Socreds were. Like no one understood.
I know,
that
I'm
joke.
really old. I
It's
am
like
really old.
the three of us and Tony are the only ones that remember what the Socreds were. Okay,
But so I think it's Francis's point that on policy, there's maybe not there's not a ton of obvious, really clear points of departure between Sim and Stewart for sort of average voters to pick up on necessarily. They have different kinds of backgrounds, they're different kinds of people, they present themselves differently, but I mean, they're both kind of in favor of the Broadway plan, they're both in favor of the general plan of the general direction of the Vancouver plan. So a lot of these big pivotal city building kind of decisions, they're kind of on the same side. And I mean, they've got, Ken Sim says he wants to add 100 more cops, and Kennedy Stewart wants to add sort of more counselors, but obviously both of them say they want to get a handle, reduce violent crime and all this. Anyway, my point is, like, on those two, I feel like it's maybe more of a personality thing and people kind of making a sort of judgment call on who they think has a better background and or understanding or acumen to kind of run things. But then with Colleen Hardwick, there's a very clear different policy direction. So the people who support Hardwick as a mayoral candidate and team and like the idea of a team slate, that is very much about a different, clear policy. She's clear and consistent about what she wants, as Francis says. It's kind of It's a direction of sort of taking the city back to the 1970s. She has this thing, and it really resonates with a lot of voters, the idea that I like the city the way it used to be. I liked it more the way it used to be. There wasn't as much traffic. I don't like all these high rises. Things were affordable back then. You know, immigrants, artists, college students could afford a place to live. Things were better in the 70s. There weren't tent cities. There weren't all these things. And so, I mean, she might disagree with that characterization, but I think, yeah, to some extent.
Yeah, as she disagrees with all of our characterizations, yes.
Which is her right. But yeah, so I think with her, she's got a clear policy direction that differentiates her from really all four of the other mayoral candidates.
Yeah, you're right. I think there's a distinction that's there that is different. I don't think it generally resonates with a lot of people in this room or in this industry. So none of us have mentioned, so I'm going to mention it now. I made fun of the mayor's donors list, and when we were talking earlier, he says, is that really going to make a difference if you were a Kennedy fan, or if you were a Hardwick fan and reading what was put out on social media, right, this week? Does that really change your mind? And so that's where I think there's a personality.
Oh, you mean, just for people who don't obsessively read Twitter every moment of the day and talk about it with their friends.
Or talk politics all the time.
The Colleen Hardwick reference he's talking about is somebody talked about wanting to make Vancouver a place for the white working class again, and she said, yeah, I agree with that. So it was seen as
It's her life mission.
an
is what she said.
anti-immigrant, non-white, you know.
It was
non-white.
online. It was like a social
just-
media
yeah.
comment.
Yeah, make Vancouver white again.
Has she said anything about that or clarified? Like,
I haven't heard anything. I mean, her defenders have said, oh, you're all taking it out of context, and we're like, seems pretty in context to me.
I saw a defender, because I'm curious what she said. I haven't seen
What
if she said.
context is there?
Well, not that I'm here to defend Councillor Hardwick at all, but one thing I saw defenders, people online defending her saying, well, she presumably just read the thing quickly and missed the word white and saw making Vancouver
Which I
affordable
can
for
see.
working people again. To me,
Yeah.
that does seem plausible.
That's
But
the only word that I saw.
fair enough.
Well, Gary,
But
why would
if-
that be?
If it was me who had explicitly endorsed a call for Vancouver
Because
to
I'm
become
wearing
some kind of
pink.
white ethno-state, if I had accidentally done this online, I think I would very quickly want to get out and say, you guys, I didn't
God.
read it.
That's a whole other debate.
Well, no, but I mean, that's what,
Frances didn't see the word white because she doesn't see
But
color.
Well, that's the thing.
actually, no, but that's an interesting thing, because I think at some level, she didn't see it.
I don't know.
Because she's not sensitive to it. Just
Yeah.
like every woman in this room knows that there can be what seems like a fairly innocuous statement, but there's something in there about women where you go, this guy's an asshole. You know, we know that, right? Or anytime you're in a group that feels like it's constantly stereotyped,
Yeah,
and there's
most
even
men
the
are assholes
tiniest
anyways.
reference to that, you notice it way faster than anybody else.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
So,
So-
the point is
The
that we're
point-
trying to
what
get
is
to
the
is
point?
it does. This is my opinion, and this is the personality question. If you are a Hardwick supporter, I don't think for 90% or 85% of her supporters does not change their mind. If you were a Kennedy
Yeah.
Stewart supporter, a donors list with a bunch of developers for 80-90% of people probably doesn't change your mind.
Yeah, no, and that's what you get these people who already hate Kennedy Stewart and would never ever vote for him, and have been saying for 4 years that they would never vote for this guy and no one should vote for him. And then the donor list comes out, and the people who have already been saying that they hate him, now they say, oh, now I'm really not going to vote for him, even more than before I wasn't going to vote for him.
I'm not going to vote for you harder.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I-
and then, and there is a very, a pretty left-wing contingent in Vancouver who thinks Kennedy Stewart is a big, right-wing sellout, and
for sure.
neoliberal, centrist, developer, money-grabbing person. And
Yeah.
and they have not been enthusiastic about him for a long time before Stanley founded the piece of paper.
It may
in
be
front
that
of
some
the
people
No Frills.
don't cast a vote, and in a very close election, it may make a difference. But I think for a majority of people, it doesn't. I think you're well entrenched into the personality of who you are as a person and what party you think or group or mayor candidate represents that.
I mean, I think one thing is neither one of them has very strong personalities. You know, Kennedy Stewart is a poli-sci prof, and he's often delivers his speeches in the manner of someone who's delivering his first lecture to, you know, a poli-sci 100 class. Like I remember during the pandemic, I used to have to listen at the same time to Naheed Nenshi in Calgary talking about what we're doing about the pandemic and Kennedy Stewart. And the contrast between them was so striking. Like, Nenshi was just so warm. He was so empathetic. He's had real feeling. He spoke really directly. And Kennedy Stewart always sounded like he was reading his notes for the first time or something like that. So, and then Ken Sim, you know, he's a nice guy. He just has I think, struggles to express himself very forcefully. There's a woman in the front here who nods at everything I say. I really love you. Can you come into my house?
Is that Katie? She's just being...
Yeah.
I thought she was just being
like,
polite.
neither one of them is a super good communicator. I think they struggle to make their points. I know that Kennedy's team is pushing him to speak more passionately about, you know, we can't stigmatize the homeless people. They are our brothers and sisters, and it's terrible how some people are speaking to them. I'm sure Ken is getting daily coaching sessions on, you know, trying to be a little more passionate about his issues and speak more forcefully, but neither one of them is super compelling. So I don't think people are going to go on the basis of personality. I actually think it is going to boil down to climate change versus good city management for that third issue, and then it's kind of who do you trust? Which way do you think they're going to go in this very narrow range around the center?
So what about the party alliances? Do you want to touch on that before we move on?
Okay, so that's my question. Blah, blah, blah. I get to talk way more than Dan.
No, we're going to go to Dan for the next one.
As I said, I think that Kennedy might be in some trouble getting people to vote for a coherent team behind him because, first of all, people on the left are always really undisciplined about voting. You know, the right, for years, always knew, vote straight NPA and maybe one vote for Harry Rankin. That's it. Not fooling around. No, you know, oh, well, maybe I really like this person even though, you know, I don't agree with them politically. They don't do that. On the left, they like to feel like I'm really intelligent. I've studied the issues. I know the candidates. I'm going to pick like a diverse slate here. I think I'll go with Jean Swanson from Cope and maybe one green, no, two greens, and then maybe one of the vision people. That would be nice.
The buffet.
That's what I see people doing out
Smorgasbord.
there. Yes. Yeah, like they think it's a buffet.
Yeah, a little green, a little meat.
A little green on the side
So
of your
I
plate.
just think
Yeah.
there's a huge...
Some dessert.
I think there's going to be a huge
And
issue
something
with
white.
the vote on the left progressive side being like kind of sprinkled all over the place. So that's, and obviously the party that Kennedy Stewart, besides his own group of unknowns, including his wife and chief of staff, is one city, right? Like, I think that secretly, that's what he wants, but I don't know. Even I can't tell. But I think he wants people to vote his slate plus one city.
But presumably, if Stewart ran as an independent again and said, I encourage everyone to vote for all 4 one-city candidates, then those 4 one-city candidates would have a way better time getting elected if they weren't competing with 6 forward-together candidates, right? So it's just also fragmented.
And then, you know, I mean, there are people who know a couple of the vision candidates and would be willing to, and, you know, Leslie Bolt is fairly well known and she's out on Twitter and seems reasonable. And then I think that I'm going to be really interested to see what happens with the Greens because they used to be more NIMBY. They used to kind of, whatever some resident group wants somewhere, that's what we're going with. And we've seen them change. Like Adrian's voted for housing projects in the last 4 years that I think she wouldn't have voted for in the previous term.
Yeah, I think she's changed.
She's
But
shifted.
I mean, I guess her role is also a bit different when she was sort of this one lone voice
Yeah.
on council. But then Mike Weeb, who's the youngest of the three Green councillors, voted against the Broadway plan. Pretty significant.
I know, but then sorry, now we're gonna get super nerdy. Sorry, everybody, just like talk amongst yourselves or
That's
whatever.
No, but I feel like the Broadway, I'm trying to bring up the Broadway plan. I thought that might be somewhat
But,
interesting
you
in this
know,
room.
Michael Weeb did a really interesting vote on Broadway and Birch. I think Adrian was against it, and Michael was for it. I can't remember I think Pete was against it too. It was a 6-5 vote, super close.
close.
That's the 20-story
Denny's.
moderate rental tower at Broadway and Birch that the Papa John's put forward, and now they've sold to someone else. But anyway, that's another story.
Heard it here first
Yeah,
or second?
yeah. But Michael voted for that because he said these people brought forward a proposal that complied with city policies. We asked them to do that. They spent an inordinate amount of time coming up with a proposal that would comply with city policies. We cannot now say, actually, we feel a little bit differently about housing and what it should achieve, and so we're going to vote against this, even though you fully have complied with every city policy. So that was an interesting vote on his part.
Right, and that was early on, I think, in their term?
No, it was like a
Maybe
midway.
midway?
I think even 3/4. But yeah, then he voted against the Broadway plan. Then he actually tried to skewer the Vancouver plan completely by saying we shouldn't pass it until we have a fully itemized, costed, how we're going to pay for all new parks and community centers needed, which was I'm voting for this, and if you pass this, you actually kill the entire plan kind of motion. So,
Dan, do you
Yeah.
want to talk about the Greens and the ABC party?
who do you
their
think
loose-
they
their
would
loose-
like, who
their
do you
loose
think they
handshake?
think, well, the other 3 votes will go to? If voters who they're trying to get, vote Ken Sim, vote for his 7
Right.
councillors, who do you think they think the other 3 votes will go to?
I mean, I guess
Green?
sort of traditionally I would have imagined that ABC was kind of competing for the NPA vote, and I guess I think they are. You know, Ken ran with the NPA last time, well, so did Dominato, councillors Bly, Dominato, and Kirby Young. So there obviously they're kind of they have a past affiliation with the NPA. So, but it's hard to tell, as you say, the NPA might be struggling for support this time. So the people who do support the ABC slate, and the ABC slate seems very organized. They've got 3 incumbents running. They've got a well-known mayoral candidate. They've got a very experienced kind of campaign team behind them. Lots of support from the business community. I'm sure
For
lots
anyone
of people
who
in this
doesn't
room.
know, the man who ran Kevin Falcon's campaign is
Yeah.
running Ken Sim's campaign. Very smart guy.
Kareem Alam, yeah, very.
Yeah.
Kareem
and then
Alam.
They've got Mike Witherly and other people helping
Yeah.
out. So they've got a very well organized. At least from the outside, it looks like a impressive operation. They're fundraising. I mean, they've raised more money in less time than Kennedy Stewart has. Everyone's talking about Stewart's donations because this list fell out on the street. But ABC seems to have been very successful at fundraising among like a lot of the business titans that used to support the NPA.
Yeah.
And are they still supporting the NPA? I don't know, but the NPA hasn't released any donor information proactively, and
But just back to how they're aligning, like what I'm curious about is those people who are going to vote the ABC Ken Sim slate, what are they going to do with their last 3 votes? Is it going to go to maybe Bill Thielman from
Oh, yeah.
Colleen Hardwick's party, or to Melissa DeGenova?
it
or
could
to
be like
Adrian
just a sampling.
Carr?
Like they'll just like, well, we
Yeah.
voted for the ABC slate, now we'll do one of each of these parties.
Yeah.
1 Green, 1 whatever.
Well, if you see how council's been running the last 4 years, but over the last 2.5 for sure, it's largely been 80% of the time, it's ABC councillors and the Greens aligning themselves to move things forward. So I think
Yeah.
for those in the political no, would end up voting for the Greens because they understand that there has been a
But
working
I could really
relationship with
see
those
some
councillors.
Yeah.
people,
Those in
they
the know.
don't totally agree with Colleen Hardwick's view of Vancouver, but I could see them tossing a vote to Bill Thielman. I don't know.
For sure, he's
You guys
well-known.
tell us, you know
Oh, God, that's the
better.
journalist in you talking. I know Bill as well. Bill's known, Leslie is known. it's a bit of a political bingo or a buffet, I think, for those last 3 votes.
Yeah.
So I do think it seems possible, as we talked about how fractured the council vote is on the left, I think it could happen that Kennedy Stewart does get reelected because, you know, there's no mayoral challenger on his
Yeah.
left. It's not like the Cope or one city is running a mayoral challenger. So even the people Francis mentioned who are maybe left-wing, really, like, consider themselves really left-wing, and they're not super impressed with Kennedy, but who else are they going to vote for? There's no one on his left. So even if he does get reelected, it seems conceivable that he might have less power on the next council than he does now. If you get like 5 or 6 ABC councillors elected and maybe one or two team councillors elected, Kennedy Stewart could be in the mayor's chair, but like as a minority around the council. Whereas now, as you say, a lot of the things he's tried to move forward between the 3 Greens, 1 Cope, 1 City, and then often getting the support of ABC on key things like Broadway Plan or Vancouver Plan, he's been able to move things forward. It's conceivable that he could be the mayor again, but have like a majority on council who kind of opposes him. It could be a weird dynamic.
Yeah.
So we're going to go from one crazy city to something even more crazy and talk about Surrey. But before we do that, was there the Mentimeter poll? Did everyone vote?
Yeah,
Can you
I'd
pull
love
that
to
up?
see the
Yeah.
results on that. Yeah. Who's the tech person? Are they going to put that up?
I don't know.
I see them
just realized now
panicking
we've been
back
staring
there.
at the QR code for half an hour.
Yeah, no, I know. We didn't give you any advance warning whatsoever. Oh, so I can't read it. What does it say?
I can't either.
52 Ken, and, that's right, 36 Kennedy, and 52 Ken Sim.
So basically, the crowd thinks Ken Sim has a
Who were the other ones?
more than reasonable chance of
4%
winning.
Hardwick and who's the
And
other
this
one?
is what you think is going to happen. It's not who you personally are voting for, is my understanding.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. And then there was
And I can
another
see how many
question,
people-
right? What was the next question?
Council.
Right? ABC, yeah. And or a mix. Like no, sort of what we're both saying, there's just so much confusion among the 5 parties on the left about who the candidates are that you should vote for. Yeah. Interesting.
So if you
Yeah.
could put the final question up, and then we'll switch over to Surrey.
Yeah.
And I believe that question is based on what you heard from Francis and Dan.
But didn't we do this?
No, that was the first
isn't
one.
that going to come later?
So leave this till later,
Yeah,
but this is
yeah.
a question that's going to come up. You can pull it off the screen.
Right.
Based on what you heard, did they change your mind as to
So
what you think is
wait,
going to happen?
don't do that vote till the end, till you've heard every one of our pearls of wisdom.
All right, and speaking of Mentimeter, we have precisely 0 questions from the audience so far. So if
Because
you
we've
could,
answered them all, because we're so
you
freaking
did. Oh no, there is
brilliant.
one. Okay, this is going to be a question for Francis.
But we're
for
going to do
later.
Surrey first, right?
Yeah, let's do Surrey. Speaking of less crazy,
Chaos.
more crazy. Who's not running for mayor in Surrey? It's just like, I think I have a bunch of my own relatives probably running as well that are out there. I can't even keep track. All Indian people are related, so even the ones I don't know about were probably related as well. So
You know,
Dan, one.
that is a stereotype.
Oh,
I'm surprised.
It is.
I'm surprised.
It is, and I agree. I agree with you, Francis. So Dan, why don't you start off with Surrey? You've got an incumbent mayor and everybody lining up to run against him.
Yeah, in some ways, yeah, as you say, I think it's in some ways crazier than the Vancouver race. I talked about how, you know, there's so many different parties in Vancouver, not just fringe parties, but like incumbent parties. But then in Surrey, you've got, yeah, as you say, you've got an incumbent mayor and 4 challengers running against him who are not like fringe outsiders. They're all experienced, well-known, prominent local politicians. And it's a weird thing because in Surrey, like in Vancouver, there was a Leger poll a couple weeks ago that suggested, I think it was like almost half of Vancouverites think the city is worse now than 4 years ago. And so it kind of suggests, there's an appetite for change in Vancouver City Hall. But in Surrey, I think it was like 70% or something of respondents in this poll said the city's worse now than 4 years ago. And McCallum's approval rating, his personal approval rating, was the lowest of any of the cities they polled. I think it was like in the 20s. So it suggested there was this, one poll, but still, this poll at least suggests, and just talking to people in Surrey, you could get the impression there is an appetite for change. So if there was one opponent running against McCallum, you'd think they'd have a really good chance. But with 4 prominent opponents all running against McCallum and all eating each other's lunch, maybe he has a good chance to get reelected again. Because, people his core supporters who like him and back him, conceivably would support him again and get their friends and associates to support him again. So it seems quite possible he could get reelected, and then he's got a court date a few weeks after Election Day.
Yeah, we'll see how long he lasts there.
Again, just a colorful, Surrey has a long history
Well, the people who
of colorful local politics.
support McCallum and the politicals that I know there, again, it's like Colleen or Kennedy or Ken, all the things that he does or says, whether his foot is ran over, not ran over in a parking lot, it doesn't change their mind. I think they see him as just crazy, lovable Doug, and it's the equivalent of Ford Nation in some ways in Surrey with their support of him. And then you have, and he had a big support network within the Indo-Canadian community in Surrey, and that is now fractured. So with fractured voting, he could rise up and win again, or does somebody else? It's around voter mobilization. I don't know. I think I have a pretty good indication what happens in Vancouver. I think Surrey's going to be tougher.
Yeah, I'm so confused. Like, I put out a call on Twitter last night saying, can anyone in Surrey tell me what they think might happen? So I got some DMs, I got some public comments, and it was just all over the map. Like, Doug's definitely on the way out. Everybody hates him. No, Doug's going to win, and here's why. Someone said Doug's going to win because the vote's going to be so fractured. And then somebody else DM'd me and said, no, Suk and Doug are going to split the kind of the Indo-something vote, and Ginny Sims and Gordie Hogue are going to split the left, NDP, Pinko liberal vote, whatever you want to call it out there. And so then Brenda Locke, who has been the solid, getting rid of the RCMP was the wrong move. She's been solidly against it. Everyone else is kind of waffling who's challenging. They gathered 40,000 signatures for their attempt to have a referendum on the police change. There's a very passionate group of people who think the police move was the wrong one. And as you said, what everyone thinks is it's not going to be a high turnout election because so many people will just be confused. And so it's going to be who can mobilize their core group. Who's got the craziest group of football fans who's going to come out for them? And
don't low turnout elections typically favor incumbents? Isn't that the conventional wisdom?
I don't know. I can't remember.
I thought higher turnout tends to be change elections, whereas...
Yeah, I think you're right. So, but here, I don't think they're trying to appeal to necessarily the big general public. I think they're all working on their ground game. Just get out the people we know who are in our band already. Get them out. That's let's focus our attention on that. They're trying to prove that they can do things for Surrey. Like, oh my God, you're so lucky you're not on the Surrey City Hall media list, because every day we're building a new community center in Fleetwood. We're building a new community center in blah, blah, blah. We're opening the swimming pool here. We're this playing field there. It's just I'm just being inundated with this
Planning
stuff.
a new stadium as well.
Oh, yeah, I forgot the new
60,000
stadium.
seats.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, McCallum
yes.
promised a stadium of 60,000 people or something. Didn't he say that he was going to approve an 80-story building, the tallest one in Metro Vancouver last time around?
Yeah.
Where did that go?
I don't know, but
Is it there?
someone has to actually propose it before he can approve it. So, Anyway, I am finding it very hard to read Surrey. I mean, last time it was pretty clear that Doug had a good chance of winning because Diane Watts's Surrey First Party split into two, and the vote was almost evenly divided between Bruce and Tom Gill. Bruce, whatever his name is, and Tom Gill.
Hayne.
Like if Surrey First hadn't split, if they'd had one candidate, they would have won.
There's another dominant party. We're talking about NPA and Vision and what they've become.
Yeah.
And so it's, again, I think in Surrey, it's around personality. The three of us were talking about the vote there is who represents the city's interests best.
Yeah.
So we're not, the other caveat at the start was that neither of you are making predictions with who's going to win. You're giving plausible outcomes. We heard about that in Vancouver. Who are the two front runners in Surrey, if you had to pick two?
I mean, I think
I'll jump in also.
I think Suk Dhaliwal. I don't really know why. I went out to his announcement that he was running. He had a pretty big crowd there. Brad Zubik was out there with him.
Oh, he
Yeah.
was?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, I don't know, like,
People don't know who Brad is.
I-
Brad is a well-known political campaigner
Yeah.
for hire. He's worked on a ton of campaigns.
and then maybe Doug, maybe Brenda. I think it could be maybe a three-way race between Suk, Brenda, and Doug. But then I could be totally wrong.
But I asked
So
for two.
Do not put any money on anything I say.
Dan?
I think it's just so hard to predict. I don't know. I'll predict either
Come on, just
McCallum will
pick
get
two.
reelected or he won't. One of those two outcomes
All right.
is likely.
I endorse that.
Because when you're saying, yeah, it's like, I guess I can see that, but then like, I don't know.
I think it's Doug,
Jenny
I think
Sims
it's
is
Doug
pretty
or
well.
Suk.
You
That's
think it's
my
Doug or
guess.
Suk? Yeah.
Yeah, I can't tell. And I think that whoever wins, they're gonna win by like 2,000 votes out
Oh,
of,
whoever wins will probably win with like 20-something% of the it'll
I
be
wouldn't
like
be
it could
surprised.
happen. Vancouver could also be quite a low
yeah.
mandate or whatever you call
Anyway,
it.
you probably wanna
I don't
whip
know.
through the rest of the region.
Yeah, I wanna
hear
we'll
your-
do that.
right, what are your
People get on
predictions?
with
Oh,
their
sorry.
days.
No, we'll go
Yeah.
through.
Doug or Suk?
Yeah, Doug or Suk. I think it's between the two of them. The low voter turnout, I can see why. You guys are confused. People are supposed to get clarity. I think they're going to leave more confused after hearing from you. So let's go around the region very quickly, and just quick hits as to what you think is going to happen there. Change or no change. So let's start with the North Shore, West Van, North Van, and the district. Do we want to
Yeah,
talk about
well,
the
I
district?
think
really?
Linda Buchanan is pretty solidly in City of North Van.
Teresa
She's got-
Dakotas is Marcello's sister from
But that's West
Amicon is
Van.
running for mayor in West Van. No, and I'm just, sorry, just jumped in, popped in my
You
mind.
said that already. You're repeating yourself.
Not here, I said at the table over there.
Oh, right, yeah, sorry.
Francis.
Uh-oh. Okay, I'm the
It's
one.
a softball question that you
Yeah.
totally missed. But anyway, okay, start with the North Shore. What do you think is going to happen there? Change or
Okay,
no
Linda
change?
in. Super interesting challenge in District of North Van, which has achieved status as the most recalcitrant anti-housing suburb of all of them, after it turned down possibly the most perfect affordable housing project I have ever seen. You know, no displacement, was in a site that was below the road, so no problems with people's views being blocked, affordable, being built not by BC Housing, but a really reputable nonprofit housing developer. So there's a young guy, Matthew Bond, who's challenging Doug Little, who's like Mr. Status Quo, who's aligned with the pigeon lady, I think. And so I'll be interested to see what happens. I don't know if Matthew's going to make it, but interesting to see these younger people trying to change things in various municipalities. Nathan Pakal and Langley, too. West Van, well, you know, maybe you know better than me because you keep talking about West Van, but like Marianne Booth, there's two challengers, Mark Sager and Marcus Wong, and then
Teresa Dakotas.
yeah, so three people trying to unseat her, so that might work to her advantage.
I think Marianne still pulls through.
You what?
I think she still probably pulls through and wins.
Yeah, I could see that just because the anti-Marianne vote
Is anyone challenging Linda? Did anyone?
There is somebody I heard about, like some.
Linda Buchanan,
too much
City of North
change
Van.
in City of North Van kind of candidate, but,
Oh, it's the guy
There's
who ran
always
last
one.
time.
yeah.
It's, yeah, he
always one
ran,
of
he ran
those.
last time. He's a,
Sorry, I didn't print out the names of everyone, so you'll just have to go with my bad descriptions like Pigeon Lady and stuff.
No, that's pretty accurate. I think that's the real name. So, New Westminster, there's my former hometown, I think a two-person race there with Jonathan
No,
Cote.
three.
it's kind of a three-person race,
Three,
right?
well, yeah, I guess there could be some vote splitting. It's a very traditional NDP town, so you've got,
Super traditional NDP
Yeah.
town.
so you have Councillor Chuck Puckmeyer running as an independent, long-term NDP, MLA, and councillor, not running with the younger NDP slate. Patrick Johnstone and his party, who's been endorsed by the NDP and the Labour slate running, and then you have it's weird, progressive New Westminster, but they're really the right-wing party.
Yeah, yeah.
So do you think there's going to be change there?
No, I think Patrick will get it. Like, New West is pretty NDP, and Chuck came at the last minute. He just is unhappy because he didn't get included with the younger people in their slate as the changeover happened between Jonathan Cote over to Patrick Johnson. Yeah, so I think it's Patrick there.
Tri-Cities, very quickly.
Brad West was acclaimed because apparently he fills every pothole in Port Coquitlam, the second there is one.
Richard Stewart is very popular.
Richard Stewart's very popular. Is there even, no, I guess there is someone running against him, but I can't see him not being elected. He's just seen as really down to earth and,
That council, have you ever watched a Coquitlam council meeting?
No.
Oh, it's just after watching all these Vancouver council meetings and Surrey council meetings,
Yeah.
and then you watch a Coquitlam meeting, it's just incredible, like just the efficiency, the collegiality.
Yeah.
I mean, it just seems like.
Yeah,
It's
no.
the bizarro world
And
of
then
politics.
It's wild.
Port Moody, I don't totally know who's running, but Rob Vagramov, he's kind of an anti-developer mayor. He keeps saying,
He's not running again.
You guys keep calling me anti-development, and I'm not. And I'm saying,
It's
Rob,
because he is.
you are. Like, just admit it. Just own it, and let's move on. But he harangues me and Justin McElroy about being called anti-development. But, he's had also some personal problems, like some kind of a charge against him that didn't go forward, but he had to step down for a while. So there's a possibility of change there, yeah.
Well, Blair, there's two councillors running, right? Vagramov's not running again? Yeah, so
Oh,
two
right,
councillors.
okay, so there's, one is sort of more like kind of in Vagramov's camp.
Same
And the
script.
other one isn't, right?
Different
Thank
people.
you for reminding me, I forgot about that, yeah.
Okay, so largely, well, Port Moody, there's going to be change. There
Of some kind, but
may be-
I'm not, I don't have a read on
West
like
Vans
what
to
the
watch.
split is between the young people who, please just give us a box to live in, and the older like, but you might destroy our view, group, so. So
Yeah.
I don't have a read on what the split is in that community.
It's the same script, different city. It's
Yeah.
the same script everywhere. Okay, very quickly, do either of you want to talk about the potential, the likely return of Rich Coleman, Township of
Oh.
Langley?
That'll be fun. Yeah, so he's running for Township of Langley. And there's 3 people, I think, challenging him.
I don't know.
Or,
Anybody know?
I mean, I think there's other people, but obviously he has huge profile, and he actually lives in the township, which is good, as far as I know. So yeah, and then the interesting thing is that the person who is the best known who's running for City of Langley is another one of these young people, pro-transit, pro-housing. So it'd be fun if Nathan Pakal got elected in city and then Rich Coleman in township. That would be an interesting pair out there.
Yeah, I don't know if they're young candidates or if I'm just getting old. I looked at them, and we talked earlier about the North Shore. There are younger people who typically have not run politically finally doing it again, and they're in that millennial age bracket.
Mm-hmm.
So that, I think, is probably the really interesting thing to watch, and what movements are created in these cities, because the millennials are generally pro-change, and you find an established family or council member that is not, particularly on the North Shore. So I had put Victoria on here, but I don't think there's enough time to go through the 20-something candidates, and that's going to confuse
And
everyone.
again, I'm totally confused about what's going
Yeah.
on
That'll
there.
be like a wholesale change.
Yeah, it will. Everyone is gone there. So just watch what happens there, because I think as one of the fastest growing municipalities from an employment perspective, Victoria, with the emerging tech sector, housing has not kept up at all. So I think they're going to have some growing pains there pretty quick. So we have 9 questions. I'm going to filter through some of these quickly. This one's for Francis in particular, and I like this one. So as Francis, you, I'll get one. I'm going to save a hard one for you. You chronicled your arduous journey of building a laneway house in Vancouver. Can you share a very condensed version of that, and which parties have committed to improving city process? I think you.
I mean, they all have. It was a 4-part, 8,000-word series. There's no way of condensing it. As you all know,
Building a laneway sucked is basically
like
what you're
every
saying.
detail is burned into your memory. Why did they insist that I had to put in a new sidewalk that couldn't be paving stones? Why? Because some ambulance might have to come 100 years from now? Anyway, you all know, you've been through it. Why did they make me save the tree, and then the engineering department said chop it down anyway, blah, blah, blah. 5 years to build a laneway house with, a few things like all of a sudden, you actually have to pay $10,000 because they just changed the requirements for the size of sump pumps, just in time for your house. So another $10,000 that you didn't expect. Ugh. Okay, still recovering. But they've all committed. Even Colleen has said there's too much of a problem. Everybody acknowledges that there is a real problem because none of the rules seem to make sense. Like, people are being told to do things. It doesn't improve the project. It costs more money. It holds everything up. There doesn't seem to be any rationale behind it, except that some clerk sitting somewhere felt like this is the rule and I must enforce it or my job is on the line, or I don't even know what their thinking is. I don't understand it. Anyway, they've all committed to
No one's
trying
running
to
on a
improve.
platform of adding more red tape that I've
No,
heard
no.
yet. I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah.
Hey, Dan, question for you. That was brief. Usually when you start speaking about
My
development
laneway
related
house?
issues, City
Oh,
of
yeah.
Vancouver.
No, yeah, you've heard.
That's a whole
people
hour in
have heard a
itself.
lot about my laneway house. In fact, my stepdaughter who lives there, when she goes to the park, she'll explain that she lives in the backyard of her, with her dad and stepmother, and they built a laneway house, and they'll be like, oh yeah, we read all about that.
Hey, Dan, speak to the idea of term limits for civic politics. It's it's a provincial issue, but what do you think about that? And it was signed by a Richmond business person. I don't know if it shows up here.
Right. I don't know.
Because of Malcolm Brody, who's going to die in office. Is that it?
Yeah, I think that's the insinuation, the dictatorship that's being run in Richmond, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, Jeff Young, how long was he? He's a Victoria city councillor who's announced he's not running for re-election. I think he was at first in office in the 80s or something. And
It was like Lou Sikora in Coquitlam. I swear he was going to die in council chair, but he ran for mayor and then was done. Do you think we'd ever have term limits? I don't think so.
I don't think so. I haven't really heard. Is there like a big push for that kind of thing? I haven't heard it.
It sounds like there's a desire
Sure.
by one person here.
I absolutely can't see it, and you know why? In the vast majority of BC towns and cities, they have a hard time getting people to
Yeah,
run.
exactly. That's what I was
Small
gonna say.
towns, it's a huge job, it's thankless, and you know what small towns are like you vote on something and everyone's mad at you and they're right behind you in the grocery lineup the next day. They have a hard time already getting people to run, and when they changed from 3 years to 4 years, a whole
Yeah.
bunch of people said, oh no, that's like, I don't think I can.
So if that was going to
do that."
happen with a term limit, there's two ways. At UBCM, which is a conference of all the city councillors and elected officials province-wide, would have to vote and say that we are going to give ourselves term limits, which is not going to happen. They're not going to vote themselves out of jobs. Then the province would have to mandate it, but in order for them to do it, they would, if I was
Okay,
a
so
city
we're done with
councillor, I
that
would say
question.
don't. So it's probably not going to happen.
Yeah, I can't see it. I mean, I just haven't heard a big push for it.
Novel idea. I know where it's coming from. Some people have just been there too long. We'll have to vote them out.
Yeah.
Okay, so Dan, another one for you. It's around we didn't talk about Burnaby, and I think they've generally been a pretty good model in terms of historically, maybe not so much now in terms of their approvals, but the question was this: if Vancouver's been chaotic, which municipality, in both your opinions, is a model of efficiency? Sorry to anyone from
I touched on
Burnaby.
Coquitlam earlier, but Burnaby's meetings is also like I mean, I haven't watched every meeting in Burnaby, so I can't really speak to it, but just the parts that I've watched, they seem to sort of get along fairly well. They have a vote, it goes this way, on to the next thing. It's not points of procedure and points of order to try to filibuster and drag things out, and they just seem to sort of move along. I mean, I'm speaking to the way the meetings themselves are actually conducted, not to the way the rezoning process or development applications, things like that, because I don't have a real insight into behind the scenes except for what folks in the industry tell us. But yeah, I mean, from my perspective, yeah, Coquitlam seems to be pretty efficient, I think. I don't know, I'd be curious to hear what people in the industry think. But
That's a whole other poll that we could put this group into, but I would say that you're right. And when the bar is pretty low with Vancouver, so if you're comparing it with other cities, everything looks great. New Westminster's been pretty good too, I would say, in my opinion.
Yeah, New West, yeah.
Okay, in Surrey, McCallum does not get reelected. So as a new mayor in Surrey, what happens with the RCMP, in your opinion?
I can't see how they can roll back. I mean, I think the best.
It's hard to put the toothpaste
I can't
back in the
remember
tube.
which. This is a bad sign for Surrey. I can't remember which of the candidates said it, if it was Ginny or Suk or whoever, but talked about maybe a hybrid model where they keep
A what?
Yeah, like where they keep some of the Surrey police they have, but still keep the RCMP. I don't know.
It's like putting half a person in jail.
But I don't see how they roll it back without just a gigantic schmozzle.
So
like
don't
that
know,
word,
even
eh?
more confused. Dan?
Just wait till I get to 2 shakes of a lamb's tail.
Because I could be wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, but like Locke is the one who is, really kind of opposed the transition, whereas the other three have taken kind of more measured, like, I think Hogue has asked for a referendum.
Because I think that they know that realistically you can't, so why make the promise?
And that's what I've heard from some of the people involved in Surrey election campaigns, is they're saying, like, if you run on the idea that we're going to reverse the transition, it would be just an immensely expensive, difficult thing to try to do at this point. And so, yeah, but I mean, Locke is, that's kind of what she's running on. But it is hard to imagine.
How do you roll
going
back?
at this point? Who knows?
I know, just distract people and build a big stadium. Maybe they'll forget about the police.
Yes.
So, 2 questions about Park Board. And so I'll put those together. He says, we focus it on council, but we're also voting on Park Board, School Board. These boards are afterthoughts. So what do you think happens here? Is it just going to be, who do you think gets in? What's the connection to council?
I mean, I think on school board, there's a chance that the vision candidates could do well because they're running former Superintendent Steve Cardwell, and they've got and Alan Wong, who's a current board candidate, and Aaron Leung, who's a young, really reasonable young man who's been involved in school board issues. So I think that vision could actually.
It kind of seems like they're focusing a lot of energy on school board.
Yeah. And, the mayor's chief of staff's wife is running for Vision, so that's another weird thing. But, I think they've got the best team that I've seen. But Park Board, I don't know if you're getting to write a story. I'm like, that's a story we should both be covering because there's been so much unhappiness with Park Board as they've dealt with homeless camps, coyotes, bike path, or how to allocate the road space. There's just been so much controversy, and I'm not clear on what all the positions are, except I know that in general, the NPA, I don't even know what ABC's position is, but obviously there's kind of one group that's going to be pro the current, splitting the road for the bike lane. But other than that, I don't know. But clearly people are really upset with the Park Board, in many ways. I've never seen people be so unhappy with park board decisions.
Well, it was kind of telling that, like, I think pretty much the first campaign pledge for the 2022 election, first pledge that I remember, it was more than a year ago. It was when Ken Sim, before ABC even existed, but Ken Sim had announced he was running. He wasn't going to run with the NPA. He was either going to run as an independent or with a new party. And one of the first things he said is, if I'm elected as mayor, we're going to abolish the park board. And that was it might have been like 2 years ago. It was a while ago, way before the campaign had really started. And he's sort of changed his position since then.
And now they're running candidates.
Now they're running candidates, and they say, well,
park
we're
board.
not going to abolish it, we're just going to make it better. But it was kind of telling that was what he decided was going to be his big first kind of pledge, because I think it was tapping into a really broad dissatisfaction with the park board and the way things are running. And obviously Vancouver is unique. No other kind of big city in Canada has this elected park board.
Yeah.
These park board commissioners, which is kind of a weird job because it's like a part-time job. I think they make like 18 grand a year or something.
Or 22 or some
so-
ridiculous amount.
But then,
yeah.
you know, traditionally, I guess it might have been imagined, well, they make sure that, you know, the greens on the city-owned golf courses are kept well, and they make sure that there's enough lifeguards hired and whatever. But really, as you say, they end up getting, stuck with some of society's most difficult problems, like homeless encampments.
Yeah.
But because it happens to be in a park, it falls on the park board, this group of part-timers, who I'm sure they're working very, very hard, but it's like not really what the park board commissioners were envisioned to be handling.
I
right?
think it's what I've found is it's a springboard for other political aspirations. It's
Well, so
not
that's
about
the-
someone,
yeah.
hey, I
Well-
want to
Like
get
a
paid
minor
18
league.
grand a year
I mean, it
to be
used
a
to
park
be
board
that
commissioner.
Philip Owen started there, George Puel started there. Like it
Suzanne-
used to
Suzanne
be,
Vaughn.
like we'll
Some
test you
current
out
councillors.
here, see if you act like an idiot in public or not, and then if you don't, then we'll let you move up. Yeah.
Let's pull up the final Mentimeter poll,
Yeah.
please, and see if you were actually successful in changing people's minds.
With our incredible insights. Yeah.
I can't see. So based on what you've heard today,
Whoa.
who do you predict to
my
win the
God.
mayor seat?
What have we done now?
Oh, man.
Oh, look at this. It's
There
a
we
horse
go.
race.
No, it's not.
It's only 11 votes, it says.
Oh.
It's interesting.
Oh, this is bad. Like they're getting to see the results before they
Low
vote.
voter
That's going to
turnout.
change people's minds.
Low voter turnout. Okay, and how about the next one? Is the same 11 people? Maybe these are the minds that you changed.
It's just who they think
This
is
mayor
going to
seat.
win.
Was there another question on council? Here we go, let's see.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
That's a big ABC. Looks like the television logo.
Yeah.
All right, so I think any parting thoughts apart from reminding everyone to vote?
Yeah, Francis should run.
Yes, Katie's nodding her head.
I would endorse.
Okay, I've
I
told
agree.
people someday I might run for politics as long as everyone understands I have a super bad temper. There's like a million tweets that could get me in trouble, you know, so if you support me, you're just going to have to deal with all of this garbage being dug
Oh,
up.
boy. Sounds like a former US president to me.
Yeah, anyway. we'll-
All right, so those are Francis's parting thoughts. Watch for her
No, no,
over the next.
here's
Francis
one
said here
parting
first,
thought.
Francis will be running politically some way.
One parting thought, this is the voting advice I give everyone all the time. If you feel really passionately about a certain group of councillors you want to elect, do not tick all 10 boxes. Because you might end up, you know, throwing away a vote on someone who you're not that excited about, but you were filling out your whole ballot, and they then beat the people you really want. So strategic voting, it's called plumping your vote. And if you have really got a core group that you want to support, don't go to the buffet. Just vote for your core group. That's my last thought.
Dan?
Yeah, I guess I thank everyone. Thanks to everyone for coming here. You know, talking about city politics. Right off the top, Gary was saying, I think he was joking that it's not an exciting thing to talk about in the morning. But the fact is,
You
municipal
made it
elections.
exciting.
Hey?
You made it exciting.
Well, sure we did. No, thanks. But hopefully, if anyone is still awake out here, you know, thanks for coming. And talking to other people about the municipal election, because municipal elections traditionally have the lowest voter turnout of any of the three levels of government. And it's so important. I mean, people in your industry understand how important decisions at City Hall are, but a lot of people in the general public, even though City Hall, municipal government affects their day-to-day life so much, they just are removed from the issues, they're not that plugged in, and they often just don't vote in municipal elections. So whoever you support, whoever anybody supports, support anybody, but it is good to get involved. And I think Fred's idea is good too. You don't have to pick 10, but yeah.
But yeah, one of the
getting out there,
reasons
getting involved is good.
that I've heard explained for the low turnout is the party identities are so muddled. Like when people vote provincially or federally, they've been educated for literally decades on what those parties stand for, so it's easy for them to make choices. This requires a lot of work to figure it all out.
Yeah, there was a question around low voter education and how that might impact voting, and I agree. So
Just tell everyone to get a subscription to the Vancouver Sun and the Province and the Globe and Mail, and they will
you'll
be
figure everything, or follow Francis on Twitter
Yeah,
and read all your
only if
columns
you
in
want
the
a
Sun.
lot of excitement in your life.
Yeah, and Dan writing for the Sun. Well, a whole other conversation about why you left writing for the Olympics to do this. We'll talk about that later. And for the employers in the room, please give your staff, your teams, a bit of time off to go do early voting. Not everyone with young families can sort of get out on that Saturday to vote. And by the time you go, you drive by, you see a huge line, you decide not to vote. So the early voting is very important. Not telling you how to vote, just vote. Please.
Today might be the deadline to request a package for mail voting, I think, too, actually.
Yeah, for October 1st, right? I think you have to get them before tomorrow.
Today was the first.
Today, yeah, tomorrow's the holidays.
the deadline.
Today's the last day.
I could be wrong.
All right, before turning it back to NAIOP, let's thank our panelists. Thank you very much for joining us.
Gary, Dan, Francis, thank you for that very thoughtful discussion this morning. I think you gave us a lot of food for thought, and hopefully certainly wrapped it up well there in reminding us about the importance of voting, about the importance of educated voting, and being aware of the issues. So thank you for that. I'm Jacqueline O'Neill, Principal of Investments at Bentel Green Oak and the co-chair for the Breakfast Committee here. So I thank everyone in the audience today for joining us, and hopefully you got some good tidbits here to take away and mull over in advance of your voting. Just wanted to give a last thank you to the sponsors today. We're a little over for time, so our platinum, gold level, and patron sponsors. And as a special thank you to the panelists, we did give an honorarium today, which we've directed as per their wishes. So thanks again for that really insightful conversation. We hope everyone enjoyed today's breakfast, and stay tuned for the October breakfast, which is going to kind of be back to our regular scheduled programming. We're going to be focusing on the industrial market. So look out for that email in the coming month here, and we'll let everybody get on with their day. I think there was a surprise door prize. Our platinum level sponsor, Oxford, has contributed, and I was made aware that the blind draw selected Rob Ayers today. So I will give you that door prize on your way out. So thank you to everyone, and have a great day.
Oh, I just wanted to say one thing. We were offered speaking fees here. I don't accept speaking fees from organizations I cover, so I'd just like you to know that your money, half of it is going to Mount Pleasant Neighborhood House, and half is going to help restore Gainois restaurant in Chinatown that was damaged during a fire. So thank you. Thank you for that.
Definitely both some great initiatives that we were happy to contribute to.